Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, it's Fallout Friday, and we're at County Crossing today, and we're going to work on repairing the destroyed house first, I think. So, yep. First things first, we're going to get our lineup sorted. It's a bit of an odd size, this one, which is, to be honest, quite a pain. It's 3 by sort of a half, really. Very irritating, but it requires a bit of glitching to get everything together, but that's not a major problem. So yeah, as you may be aware, I think I've mentioned in the past, the large number of builds, particularly the prison project I've just finished, have absolutely burned through my character's cash. I've spent a lot of it on concrete in particular. Working on Starlight Prison, so he is basically broke. So the last week or so I've had this plan in the back of my mind of turning somewhere into basically a Brahmin farm where I can harvest fertilizer and combine it with plastic to make jet and sell vast amounts of it to continue rebuilding the Commonwealth, or my drug empire, depending on how you want to look at it. So this is the beginning of that project. I had intended to do it in a couple of shorter videos, but well, I ended up with more footage than I expected, so whilst I have built the barn already, there's no point putting it in this video, we'll be here all night. So, I'm just lining up the wall pieces at the moment, so trying to see where the windows on these shack walls are going to fit in relation to the remains of the building. And sort of see what looks best where they meet in the corners. I end up relying on the corners of the destroyed building to fill in the gaps that are inevitably left by the fact that the thing's 1.5 squares wide. So in these two front corners in particular. Because, as I'm sure you're well aware, we only have full-sized walls and no half-sized walls outside of the concrete tab, which would, if they'd even snap at all, look ridiculous on this build. So, plus I really don't want to use concrete for a while. I've used quite a lot on that prison build. A little bit sick of the sight of it. So, if I stop staring off into the distance, I think that's our ground floor in place. Yeah, it is now anyway. Yeah, there's a slight error in judgment on this one, in that I've basically built the ground floor and then positioned it in, which is the right idea, but what I should have done is built the upper floor as well, or at least the walls and the floor, if not the roof, and then glitched the whole darn thing into place, because I shall shortly be encountering problems when it comes to putting the upper floor on once the lower floor is in position. Still, we get there in the end, and it comes up with something rather a little non-standard, so I'm quite happy with the results. And this is the general gist of it. It's a bit fiddly trying to get the thing in place properly, but it does work, I promise. And the general idea works like this. This is actually not really the best corner for it, but just line up the walls and use the concrete pillar as always to move everything. Now when you get the position just right, as you can clearly see I can't see anything like enough of the building at the moment, so I don't know what I was doing here. I figured it out eventually. There's a lot of eventually, to be fair. I cut out quite a bit of me just faffing with this thing. And yeah, so you can see the general idea from here. Obviously it's not going to go in from this corner, and I can't see the lines properly anyway. So, now I've figured it out. Stop being such a dumbass, come on. We'll use this corner near the workbench, which seems to be much easier for some reason. I think it might be the other way, but somehow the fact the workbench blocks off your perspective actually makes it easier. Or at least part of the perspective anyway. Because, as we know, the perspective in this game is just nightmarish. So there we go, you can see it's basically in the right place now. The floor's kind of floating up a bit there. So make a few minute adjustments to, no, not like that, to get it to line up with the walls. This would probably be a lot easier if the workbench wasn't pressed right up against the place, but I guess Bethesda didn't really have repairing the building in mind when they put it in. There we go, we're just about there now. Give over with the floaty floor. There we go. Simple as. There we go, that's the ground floor repaired. Nice and easy. Principle works for any of the destroyed houses around the Commonwealth. Other places I've done it. Where else have I done it? Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on that now. There are plenty of other places with houses much like this that are bombed out, and you can repair them just use the same technique anyway. Sure. Did you make a plane? I did it there, over the top of the workshop house. I know there's somewhere else as well. It'll come back to me eventually. So, let's stick the upper floor on. I realise it's going dark, but I didn't at the time. I was rather focused on what I was doing. I'll skip it on in a moment. Just stick this floor down. I'm sure you're well aware of how to put a floor on. Apparently I'm not. There we go. I'll wake up. So here is the big problem with the not putting the upper floor on first. You can see I've used the shack upper floors, which I think I would have had to do anyway, to be fair, but it does mean that yeah, we've got a gap between the floor and the wall, which you'll see a bit more clearly in a moment. I just thought actually it might be easier if you happen to like the style to use barn and warehouse pieces with this, particularly barn pieces if you're going for the wooden look. Here we go, daylight. Yeah, because they're that little bit extra height will make life a heck of a lot easier, and I thought particularly it would get the top half of it just above the level of the destroyed building there. You can see just poking above the floor. Yeah, hindsight's a beautiful thing. So my first thought here was to sort of set up guard posts around here in each of these balconies, but I didn't like the way it looked, and I'm not planning on having that many people here. I'll keep it fairly automated, maybe just have a few farmers here producing some extra crops as well. Just so that I've got a nice low level of it to supply places that I don't want to grow crops in. So this is what we went for in the end. Yeah, you can just about see it there. Yeah, there we go. You can see the gap between the upper and lower parts of the walls, which we'll have to glitch something in to fill the gap rather in a moment. Yeah, I settled on County Crossing for my jet production facility, largely because it's quite a large area. I mean, I can build a really good sized barn here, give me somewhere to house quite a lot of Brahmin. Might even see if I can cram a few more in than I've already done. And then we can have a reliable, steady source of fertilizer coming in for my jet production. Well, yeah, I ended up putting these small floors in to fill the gap between the roof and the edge, because again, the building's the wrong size, which is just a pain in the arse. Although I could possibly have not used the balcony pieces and sort of improvised, that might have worked better. Oh well. But yeah, the shack upper floors and possibly flat roofs, if I'd used those, might glitch through. The upper floors certainly seem to glitch through, which I didn't actually notice at the time until I was editing this. So it might have been a neater solution to my problem, but it works. It's just that dreaded awkward sized house. So it's just another example of us lot going way beyond what Bethesda ever expected us to do. I should imagine they're dancing with joy over the success of their settlement mechanic being successful beyond their wildest dreams. Certainly explains how they can afford to do things like give away a special edition of Skyrim free if you've already got it. Like I got free. So yeah, that one doesn't want to snap in. They're a bit temperamental with that sometimes, particularly in this case where you've got the existing building getting in the way. So, stuck it on the ground outside, grab an ashtray, and we'll glitch it into place. Nice and easy. So one good thing about these particular walls, they're very forgiving and you can use them to plug up gaps very easily, even if they don't snap that willingly. See what I mean? Soft edges, as Sardilia would say. But actually I think it might even come out more neatly than the one that snapped into place. So that's what the place is looking like now from the outside. I realise that back wall's a little bit ugly and monotonous, so I do end up changing out the central windowed piece on the upper floor for a different look. Although I think I've cut that out because it was fiddly as hell. Pro tip for that little bit: if you're going to change it, do it before you glitch wood into the wall like this. Fills up the gap, but it does mean any future changes you want to make are a pain in the neck. As you see, good old concrete pillar, hold all straight in. Simple as. That's a barn piece, as you can see, going in much more easily than the general wood pieces are. If only I'd realised that in the first place. Especially as I've used the barn tab to build the barn, it would kind of make everything match. No, well, I'm not pulling it down now. Yeah, as I was saying about hindsight. Yeah, this one was a little bit more awkward for some reason. The first one glitched in, makes it look like it was just belongs there. I've just used wood from a slightly different source to make those panels. And that second one, not so much. Yeah, that's the next gap I need to plug. Very helpful caravan guard wandering around, getting him away. Forget which trader she was with. Possibly Doc Weathers, I'm not sure. So, let's see upstairs. Just went for the corrugated steel pieces rather than another wood bit, just a little bit of variety in the textures. I realise at a glance it looks like there's plenty anyway, but when you stand back and look at it, it's all just mishmashed wood. It just breaks it up a little bit easier on the eye. And they fit in quite nicely, these ones. I quite like these corrugated steel pieces for stuff like that. More so than other things, I think. I certainly don't like building with them alone, because I think there's sort of 2 or 3 options you get with it, and they all look much the same. For one of the balconies, which looks particularly ugly if I remember rightly. So, same basic technique. I was hoping I would just be able to use the ashtray and glitch it in from the inside. Unfortunately, that'll be about where my luck ran out with the easy part, and it just wouldn't work. I wanted to jump up like that, and when I did get it to sit down, no, nothing. Not happening. And it would have sat on the inside rather than the outside anyway, which is what I really wanted. So, my favourite old solution, which I really should get around to doing tips and tricks on at some point, because I use it quite a lot and it's a handy little trick for those hard to reach places. Says sounding like a toothbrush advert. Is to lift it up in the air on one, grab a second concrete pillar, drop it down low, grab the lot again, and up in the air again. And you can basically go as high as the build limit will allow you to doing that. And the problem is, the higher up you go, the further back you have to stand, otherwise you just can't see what you're doing. And then at that point you start struggling to see anyway. And then you get sun and fog like this just getting in the way, and you can't see a darn thing anyway. But we get there. See, I'm still too close to it. So if you can't see the bottom of the pillar that's touching the ground, it won't go green. So instead I have to battle the sun and the fog, as I say. But I'm pretty pleased with the result in the end. I didn't realise when I first did it that because I was trying to glitch it in like that, I did suddenly realise that the slanted top to it actually lines up with the slanted roof. Which I suppose should have been obvious really, but Anyway, it looks like the roof just sort of extends. Actually it does from the side anyway, so it actually looks quite good. So the same process on the other side. I'll just stand even further back with this one, I think. Just as the information bar across the top there just gets right in the way of where I wanted to look. Put it on the wall, not on top of the roof. There we are. Well, this was fiddly in the sense that it just seems to want to sit a long way back, so I had to faff with it a couple of times to just trick it into sitting a little bit closer. Just release it, send it back to the starting point and grab it all again. Eventually it sits a bit closer. But it's a lot of boring faffing and I didn't think you'd want to watch it. As you can see, nice, neat and tidy. Now I know I don't really need support for these, but there's something about a slightly more completed look if you put posts underneath these balconies. So that's what I'm doing. Now see, it's not immediately obvious, but I actually hecked up slightly on the front here. So those floor pieces don't connect with the wall. There's actually a gap just to the right of this post on that wall there. There you go, you can just about see it, but whether or not you'd notice if I hadn't pointed it out, it took me ages before I realised I'd missed it altogether. So I'm not going back and fixing that either, if I'm honest. You could barely see it anyway. All in all, given that this place is a bit fiddly and awkward, I'm quite pleased with how it's come out. It was sort of an afterthought, really. And it was here anyway, and I had a plan for the rest of the place, more or less anyway. And thought, well, let's move our couple of farmers out of the shed they're living in behind it, and rebuild the house for them, and have a kind of farmhouse there. I was kind of hoping to get the door glitched onto the back side of the house rather than this side, but the gap's just not big enough, so it makes more sense to have it facing out on the road. Well, today anyway, but in the era that this game's set in rather, all the threats come from the road, or more likely to come from the road, so having the door facing the threat doesn't seem like the brightest idea ever. I will probably put some form of wall on here at some point, around the settlement I mean, so that should reinforce things a bit. Anyway, walkthrough time. So yeah, fairly basic decoration. There's a couple of Brahmin cages out the back, 3 Brahmin cages, which are entirely temporary. I may want to put something different across the front edge, I don't know. Possibly guard post, possibly not, possibly something else, I haven't decided really. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to follow me on Facebook and Twitter, by all means please do. And I will be speaking to you soon.